The tax system in Western countries like the UK, Canada, and the US are purposefully designed to make it as hard as possible for you to get rich. And in this video, I'm gonna prove to you that this is the case. I'm gonna share you the secrets that the wealthiest people in the world use to pay much less tax than you do right now in percentage terms. And I'm also gonna share you how you can potentially completely avoid tax and reduce your taxes all the way to 0% if that is what you're looking to do. Most people think that the tax systems in the West that are progressive, that tax higher incomes at higher rates, are a fair way to distribute the wealth from the richest to the poorest. And while that sort of happens to an extent, it actually doesn't, and I'm going to prove that to you in this video. Because really what these tax systems achieve are not to tax the richest people, but to tax the people who are trying to become rich, to keep everyone the same. But before we get into all of that, because I know that this video is gonna get hate because it's a bit controversial, I'm not saying that all tax is bad. I'm not saying that every country should have no taxes whatsoever. I'm absolutely not saying that. Governments, as much as they are over bloated in most of the Western countries, they do still need money. You wouldn't want to live in a society that doesn't have any police, that doesn't have any public infrastructure. All I am really saying in this video is that, number one, the way the tax systems are designed are over bloated, inefficient, and they don't actually distribute wealth in the way that you probably think that they should do. And what I am saying is that the incentives that the current Western tax system like UK, US, Canada create are not really that great for the long-term future of all of these countries. As we can see right now, a lot of these Western countries are in decline. The people who are making the most money, who are building these countries, are just leaving. And really what I'm saying is that you, as they're a high income person or someone who's up and coming, who wants to get rich and make a lot of money, whether or not you think the tax system is fair, you need to be aware of how it is designed and how to use it to your advantage, because otherwise you're just gonna get completely rammed in the ass by the system that is not set up to help you succeed, but in fact the complete opposite. It is your duty to pay as little tax as possible, because even if you want to give your money away, there are much better ways for you to give it away than to give it to these governments that don't use it properly anyway. Now, before we get into the meat of the video, the easiest way for you to completely reduce all of your taxes from whatever 40-50% you're paying right now to completely zero is to simply move to a jurisdiction that doesn't have income tax. So if you already agree with what I'm telling you and you don't even want to watch the rest of the video, you just want to reduce your taxes, the easiest way for you to do that is to move to a place like Dubai, where you can get 0% income tax and either 0 or 9% corporate tax, sort of depending on what you make. So if that's something that you're interested in doing, then you can book a free consultation with my business bosses down below who can walk you through everything and help you go through the process and reduce your taxes. With that, let's get into the video. So to understand how the tax system is set up in the Western countries, which broadly have like very similar systems, is that obviously there's many kinds of taxes that are levied. You have VAT, you have like taxes on certain kind of products like alcohol taxes or whatever. But what I really want to focus on are income taxes, because the way income taxes are designed is to essentially keep everyone in this normal distribution. They want to push everyone to be sort of in the middle, to be making a similar amount of money. Of course, they don't do this perfectly, but the more you make, not only the more taxes you pay because you have a higher tax base, but you're also paying a higher percentage of that income in taxes. Now, most of you obviously know that, so I don't need to explain that to you further, but the real stated goal of this is to push everyone to this normal distribution, to make sure that people are not building wealth too quickly. And this might seem great. This might seem like, well, they make so much money, they should pay anyway. And we'll get back into those arguments in a moment. But really, if you think about this, it doesn't actually tax the rich, because who are the rich people really? Are they the people who have the highest salaries? No, the richest people are not the people who make the most earned income. They're the people who have the most wealth, aka the people who own most assets. So passive income generated from, let's say, stocks or investment or real estate are all taxed very, very differently and a lot more favorably than earned income. And they have a lot of like tools and tricks that they can use. Like you can have a base of assets and then borrow against those assets, which is technically not income, so they don't have to pay tax on that. So really, if you already have wealth, if you're already wealthy, you're really not exposed to the tax system nearly as much as if you are a high earner. So specifically, what does this mean? This means that if you're a high earner, aka you're working yourself towards getting wealthy, those are really the people that are being taxed by the system. It's essentially not taxing the wealthy, but rather the people who are trying to sort of escape the system, who are trying to become wealthy. So the system is literally designed to make it as slow as possible for you to build wealth. I'm not saying that this is some conspiracy by the wealthy elite class to like make everyone sort of be stuck in the rat race forever or something like that. But like, let's say you were a member of the wealthy elite in Victorian UK or something like that, and you were like, how could we design a system to protect ourselves, to not let the normal people climb up the ranks and essentially build as much wealth as we have, to keep all the power to ourselves? How would we do that while at the same time convincing the people that actually what we're doing is taxing the rich and redistributing the income? Well, one great way to do that would be to actually just tax people's income. So the more you earn, the closer you become to actually building wealth, the more you're just going to be taxed to like slow down your progress as fast as possible. But what they don't realize is that the people who are already wealthy are not actually really getting taxed at all. It's just the people who are trying to get wealthy. Now, again, I'm not saying that this is some conspiracy, but if it were, it would be a pretty genius one, don't you think? So really, whether this is some conspiracy or not, the end result of this, which you need to be aware of if you want to build wealth, is that the people who are making the highest, specifically active earned income, like highest salaries, are getting absolutely rammed in the arse by the system without them even realizing it. I mean, I guess they are realizing it when you see the top line of your salary and then the bottom line all the way at the bottom. So before we talk about exactly how you can reduce this and how you can sort of bypass the system, just like the wealthiest people do, let me just drill down this example, because it's really important to understand just how much this slows down your wealth building progress. So let's think about two scenarios here. We have two people who both make $300,000. One of them is taxed at 40%, and one of them is taxed at 0%. For the purposes of this example, we're just going to assume that they both have $50,000 a year in living expenses. The important thing to understand is that living expenses or personal expenses are always going to be on after-tax money, meaning you've already been taxed, and then after that you pay for your living expenses. So really, the 0% tax person is saving $250,000 a year, whereas the 40% tax person is only saving $130,000, which is only around half of what the 0% person is saving, despite the fact that they're only being taxed at 40% rather than 50%. Now again, you don't need to live in Dubai and pay 0% tax if you don't want to. I'm just showing you that what a drastic difference it will make you. Like, you're literally gonna have to work for tens of years more simply because you're living in a country where you need to pay all of these taxes. But now I hear you saying, oh, but it's worth it. I get all of these benefits and I like giving money to the poor. I get that. And if you're genuinely happy with paying the taxes, for you is completely okay, then like absolutely that is fine. Like, you do what works for you. But let me just give you a couple of arguments. Whatever you're getting in your home country for paying all these taxes, could you not get that with all of the tax savings you're able to make in, let's say, a 0 or 10 or 20% tax jurisdiction? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. That is up for you to decide. But let's say you're saying like, oh, but I'm not gonna get free healthcare. With all the tax savings you're making, again, assuming you're making a good amount of money. Obviously, if you're making 40 grand a year, then none of this applies to you anyway, because you're not really paying the taxes anyway. But here we're assuming you're making a high income, or you're the type of person who's on the way to making the high income, so you need to be aware of this in advance. With those tax savings, you're going to be able to buy private health insurance anyway. It's going to be much better than the shitty government healthcare at all of these countries anyway. What about infrastructure? But like, well, if they don't have high taxes, then they must have terrible infrastructure. Well, maybe there's places like that. But to me, Dubai has excellent infrastructure, much better infrastructure than the places that I've lived in Europe. Singapore has world-class infrastructure, absolutely amazing infrastructure, and both of these places are low tax places. Well, how can this be? Well, it's because the issue I have is not necessarily with taxation in general. If the taxes genuinely gave you amazing benefits and it was totally worth it, then I wouldn't have an issue with it. The issue with these Western governments is that they are inefficient. Now, systems in general, they can either be efficient or inefficient. They can either be well run or poorly run. It just so happens that all of these Western governments are over bloated and super inefficient. So whatever money you're giving them is not being used as efficiently as it could be used. Now, what if you're saying like, oh, but I want to give money to the poor? Okay, if you want to give money away, first of all, that's very noble of you, much more noble than me. Do you not think that there are more efficient ways for you to give away 40 or 50% of your money than giving it to the government? Like, I'm sure there are tons of charities that are going to take your money. And besides that, do you not think that you have a responsibility to first of all take care of yourself and your family, and only after that, if you really want to give away money to your government, like, I'm sure they'll take donations. Now, how do you reduce your taxes? Well, if you are within one of these high tax Western systems, there's very few loopholes that you can use as a normal person, because the tax system is not designed to help you as a normal person become wealthy. So what can you do? Well, there's two ways that you can be taxed a lot more favorably than earned income, so like salary income. And that is to have assets that earn you passive income, like investments, for example, or you can run a company yourself as a self-employed person. Now, the first one of assets obviously leads to a sort of a chicken and egg problem, where if you don't have any money, then how are you gonna get assets? So really, if you as a normal person who's not already wealthy wanna build wealth in one of these systems, really your only way is to run a company yourself, because companies and company profits are taxed a lot more favorably than salary income. And the way you do that is that you have a company and you need to keep the money inside of the company, which will allow you to essentially defer taxes, because you're not paying all that money to yourself and paying personal income tax on that money. Then within that company, you can invest in assets, you can grow that wealth within the company, and then over time you can take it away and things like this. Now, this is still going to lead to you paying like 30% probably, but really, like I said, the only way for you to actually escape these crazy taxes is to simply move yourself to a jurisdiction where you don't have to pay these crazy taxes. Dubai is the option that most of the like more ambitious, more successful people who think in this kind of way are choosing right now. Like I said before, I have business partners who can help you go through the entire setup process. What we offer is a Western perspective into the setup process here in Dubai. There's a lot of local agencies that don't always offer the best service, but what we want to do is offer you the best service possible, VIP everything, at very reasonable prices as well. So if that is interesting to you, then you can book a call down below in the description. Obviously, Dubai is not the only option. You can go to Singapore, Southeast Asia. There's a lot of countries that offer these like tax exemptions. You can look into that yourself. Dubai is simply what I have chosen as my main residency. And I have a bunch of other videos about life in Dubai, like running a business in Dubai on this channel. So if you're interested, you can check those out. Specifically, again, if you're interested in moving to Dubai, I actually made a full free guide on the process of moving to Dubai, because the thing is, there's so much misinformation about this process, like what you need, like do you get 0% tax, like what about the 9% tax, everything like that. So if you want to have all of that in one place and you want to understand what this process entails, you can watch this video right here, which is what I recommend. So go watch that video next, and I'll see you in the next one.